David, oh my God, even with you. I don't know how y'all getting paid right now that you're boosting up Marianne Williamson and doing the bidding of Karen Burnell and Norman Solomon, but it's weird and it doesn't make sense. So let's do my react video right now.
Look at all those experienced people who took us into Iraq. Look at all those experienced people who kept us in Afghanistan 20 years too long. Look at all those experienced people who have not raised them.
I agree with you, but also look at Donald Trump. That's the guy, that's the last person we had, and he had no experience.
So Marianne Williamson, who is running to become the Democratic nominee for president. It's a tough road with Biden as the incumbent, but regardless, she was on Mehdi Hasan's show on MSNBC, and I have not seen this yet, but I want to watch this through with you and show you how she did. I'm curious because
David, Mike, all you other people out there, you have to consider that every time you do a segment like this, it's going to affect your reputation because it's about your consciousness of politics. And whether or not you have rational national decisions about what is actually happening. And the more you promote somebody who is a self-help guru and an anti-vaxxer, it's not going to look good for you. Okay? I mean, if I need to, I could probably pull up like the best of Marianne Williamson at the last presidential debates where she said some off-the-wall crazy shit. Right? Like, we were laughing. I hosted debate parties, David. And everybody was laughing their fucking heads off at this chick. And you expect that she actually has some legitimate arguments at this point? She should have been canceled years ago. And the reason that she hasn't been is because she's a rich-ass motherfucker who's been donating a ton of ass of money to a Unitarian church in Los Angeles that is controlled by the Bernie's Coffee Shop crowd and tied into the Karen Burnell, Norman Solomon network. It's really frustrating to watch you guys be so fucking played.
we're talking about a network, and I should say a host, in Mehdi Hasan, who is probably the best host that MSNBC has in terms of someone who is more forward-thinking, more focused on the rights of workers, human rights generally. And Marianne Williamson's platform is very pro that. It's essentially the Bernie Sanders platform that she has taken on.
Yeah, it's a fucking playbook. It's a playbook that all of these candidates who are false candidates, they're given basically a playbook of these are the topics you need to focus on so that you convince people to, they're Pied Pipers. It's fucking Wednesday, dude. Shouldn't people, I mean, well, I guess it's 3:30.
But when you combine that with a campaign that has very little chance simply because of the fact that Biden is the current president, this is not like 2016 when Obama was, leaving.
That's not the only reason. David, she ran in 2020. She didn't get any fucking points back in 2020 either when Bernie was in the race. So don't give me that bullshit.
We're talking about someone who is current president and challengers to him. So I'm curious how Mehdi Hasan is going to, juggle those two things in this interview. But let's check this out.
Williamson recently laid out what she calls an economic bill of rights, which runs to the left of President Biden's economic policies and includes the right to a job that pays a living wage and universal quality health care. But given she can't win, why is she running? Marianne Williamson joins me now all the way from London. Marianne Williamson, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know it's late where
All the way from London? What the fuck is she doing in London right now? Do we discuss this? Does this come up? Why is she in London right now?
you are. Let's start with an obvious question. Why are you running against Joe Biden? Why do you believe he does not deserve a second term as a Democratic president?
You said a couple of things tonight that were interesting. You said, well, he has given more investment in green energy in the Inflation Reduction Act than had ever been done. Yeah, but he also approved the Willow Project, which completely nullifies those investments. He's also given more oil drilling permits even than Trump did. So this idea that he's done more investment in green energy, please let's not pretend this is the great.
By the way, if you're curious about the Willow Project, I did a video on that when that whole thing went through. Just search Willow Project or Willow on my channel, and you will find it.
Climate change president. You also mentioned that he cut child poverty in half. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, he did with the child tax credit. And guess what? 6 months after they did it, it expired and they didn't bother to permanentize it. So there are a lot of ways in which the president has said that he would do things. He's made some incremental changes. I don't want to not give him credit where credit is due, although you did just now.
So what do you say to those who point out that, yes, you are popular with younger voters and on TikTok, but you can't win a Democratic presidential primary? You're essentially a spoiler candidate. And so by primarying Biden, all you're doing is weakening him in the general and making it easier for a Republican to beat him in 2024 in what will be a very tight election.
Well, there are two things about what you said. First of all, you said I'm a spoiler candidate. I'm not a spoiler candidate. I'm running in a primary. So you can't be a spoiler if you're running in the...
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And to say otherwise is to be ignorant or a liar. Yes, you absolutely can. If you know that our best chance of preventing fascism in America is to allow the incumbent to get reelected, and you are challenging that incumbent, then you are absolutely helping the GOP, period. Plus, you are completely unqualified. And you're insincere. You basically just copied a playbook. It's some bullshit.
Primary.
That's right. She's right.
No.
Like, I don't...
She's not.
Mehdi Hasan's a smart guy. I'm not sure why he would call her a spoiler candidate. What's she going to spoil?
David, shut the fuck up. You're from Canada. And you don't know the dynamics of what's going on in America. And you certainly don't know the dynamics of these assholes that come out of the LA region. And you're absolutely wrong. She is a bullshit candidate who knows she's not going to win and hopes that she's going to get some money out of this through fundraising. She'll be able to pay other people who work on her campaign, who will be satisfied with the fact that they got to do that. But they literally are so fucking selfish that they only care about themselves and the little bit of fucking profit they're going to get out of this.
It's a primary. You can't...
Oh my God.
You're not... What are you spoiling? They're all Democrats, and it's a primary. And Biden's the president. Again, you know, maybe it's possible Marianne can win a state. I don't think so, but regardless, you're not spoiling anybody. It's a very bizarre...
Yes, you are, David. Yes, you are. Because what you're doing is spreading negativity, and that is voter suppression. And you assholes are out there constantly saying, well, the Democrats fucking suck, right? You keep doing this over and over again. Look, we know what the problems are, and we're working very hard to solve these problems within the Democratic Party. But you keep doing this bullshit, and you're going to let the GOP slip in every single fucking time. So basically, you are agents of the GOP every time you do this bullshit. I can't even with you right now.
Comment from Mehdi Hasan there.
The second thing you said was this narrative you can't win. Isn't that what people said about Donald Trump? I will win if people vote for me. I believe that in a democracy, people should have as wide an array of options before them as there are candidates running on agendas. That's what a democracy is. We need to protect our democracy right now. That's obvious to everyone. The way you protect your democracy is by using your democracy. Candidate suppression.
Then you should, if that's the case, then you should be running as a Republican. If you think that the patriarchal system of voters that are on the GOP side of the House will vote for you for the same reasons as Trump, then that's where you should be running, because Democratic voters don't vote that way.
As a form of voter suppression. So this idea that I'm a spoiler, no, I'm not a spoiler. I'm a candidate in a primary, and it's very important, I believe, that the president debate me, that the president debate any other people who are challenging him. At a time like this, when the fascists are clearly at the door, we should be having a very serious conversation about what it will take to defeat them, and not just accepting what the DNC has to say because a few elites have decided it's going to be Joe Biden.
All right. Her point there about wanting a debate and wanting to be in this discussion. There are a lot of people who think Marianne Williamson is dishonest in her intentions, and that she is running to sell books, to raise her profile. And my point is, even if that is true, and that may be true, I don't know. I don't know Marianne Williamson personally, so I don't know what her intentions are. But what matters,
like I said, you all need to be very careful about ruining your own reputations over this kind of bullshit. Because she is a false candidate. She does not represent the progressive movement. And I personally know of a bunch of bullshit she's done in LA. And I'm telling you straight up, nobody that I know as national organizers back this woman. And even my local people are like, who have seen her speak, are like, yeah, this is not possible.
What matters is the output. In terms of this discussion, in terms of this whole debate, what matters is what is she saying, and are those issues being discussed in a public forum? Her intentions ultimately here do not matter if she does the right thing, if she says the correct things, if she props up the right issues. Let's say, for example, Bernie Sanders, who is the most genuine politician I've ever, in terms of national politics, I've ever seen. But let's pretend Bernie Sanders is fighting for higher wages, for healthcare for all, because he likes to see his name in headlines. Let's say that's why he's doing it, because he wants to be famous in his latter years. Okay. Does it matter if you still get healthcare, if you're...
First of all, we didn't, David. We did not get health care. And Bernie had a sincere campaign. He was actually recruited and reluctantly ran in both of those races. Okay? And the people who volunteered for him truly believed in him, not all the bullshit people who were surrounding him. And that's where we got disillusioned, was all the dumbass bullshit people who surrounded his campaign and made it toxic.
Wages still go up, if corporations still get taxed, why do intentions matter there? They don't matter. So while it would be nice that if every single person was genuine that was running for public office, which is definitely not true, well, it would be nice if that was the case. What ultimately matters is what your output is. This is also why it doesn't matter whether or not Trump is personally racist in his, behind closed doors and what he says. Because what he outputs is racism. Same with DeSantis. What they output is bigotry and racism. It doesn't matter if in their own minds they are wonderful people. They're kind to their families. That doesn't matter. What matters when you are a public figure with a platform and power, what matters is how you use that platform and that power. So the same case here in this race. Williamson's intentions here do not matter. What matters is what she is saying and what she is platforming.
So I agree, Marianne, with your analysis, and I agree with a lot of the policies that you're outlining. The issue is, I guess, you. And you mentioned Donald Trump. I spent a lot of time on this show referring to Donald Trump as the former reality TV star, not just to be snarky, but also to remind people that he had no business running for president. He had zero experience, zero qualifications. And with respect, doesn't the same apply to you? I mean, I may agree with a lot of your policies, but that doesn't mean that you, Marianne Williamson, self-help author, best-selling author, former spiritual advisor to Oprah Winfrey, are qualified to lead the country, to be commander-in-chief, to run the federal government, to have your finger on the nuclear button. Doesn't experience matter?
Before we get to her answer here,
Oh, God.
she's not going to be president. So, like, this is a discussion that I'm, it's.
You know what they're doing, though, David, is they're trying to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes as 2016 when they didn't give access to media, access of coverage to the smaller candidates, right? So now they have to fucking highlight these stupid ass people because otherwise the voting electorate is going to be pissed off that, well, my candidate didn't get any airtime, right? So she's getting time on Fox News, she's getting time on MSNBC, and so forth, despite the fact that she's practically like that guy that wanted to give us all ponies. Who was that guy? I can't remember his name. But literally, she is a joke fucking candidate. And yet, you're giving her airtime just because you want to cover this bullshit. And a lot of you on the left at this point have been like, yeah, she's got a great platform. Why? Why does she have a great platform? Because she's got a fucking playbook. Do you think she would actually do any of this shit if she got elected? No, she won't. We don't know what her motives are, but they certainly aren't based on the playbook she was handed to fucking read off everything that we want. She's not gonna fucking fight for this shit.
It's hard to know how to frame this because on one hand, Mehdi Hasan's saying you can't win. On the other, he's saying, "Are you ready to be president because you're just a best-selling author? Is that enough to be president?" You can't have both, right? Either you think she can win and you don't think she's qualified enough to be president because she's just an author, or she can't win and she's using this platform to simply spread this message and try and bring these discussions, these policies into the conversation in some way.
Dude, she literally said that we just needed to pray away the hurricane, and instead of actually like launching FEMA resources. Give me a goddamn break with this bullshit.
So it's either or, right? You can't have it both ways. So, which is why I'm of the perspective that she can't win because Biden is current sitting president running again. Incumbency is incredibly powerful. She's polling currently under Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's at like 20%. And it's not because he's popular. It's because his last name is Kennedy, and he's an alternative to Joe Biden. People, I'm making an assumption here, but I think it's a fair assumption that most people don't actually know much about Kennedy and don't know that he is incredibly anti-vax, anti-science. He has been recently buddying up with some conservative...
She is too. They both are. They both are. And at the end of the day, it's going to be how do they result in each independent state primary, right? So whatever fucking polling you have doesn't fucking matter. If it's national polling, it doesn't matter because popular vote doesn't matter, David. And obviously they're not even polling close to getting the popular vote. But the reality is none of these dumbasses are going to get any delegates to the DNC when they go through the primaries. It's not going to fucking happen.
Donors, some right-wing donors. I would bet that most people answering Kennedy in polls are simply saying that because they don't want Biden again, not because they really love Kennedy. So it's just, I feel like you have to kind of pick a lane here if you're going to criticize her. But, his job as a journalist as well is to kind of explore all avenues. It's not really, I guess his job to pick a lane in this situation. But I think it's important to be clear that if she can't win, then it's weird to criticize her for not being ready to be president if you know that she can't win.
Yeah. Well, let's look at what those experienced people have done for us. Look at all those.
Wait, why would that be a weird criticism? I mean, first of all, they have to give airtime to these candidates, David. So obviously, his job would be to be like, but I don't think you can actually perform the job. So why would it be weird for him in an interview that he has to conduct? Because we made such a big fucking stink that Bernie didn't get enough airtime in 2016 and 2015, right? So now they're doing what they were, criticized about. They're getting the airtime that they need. So obviously they're going to criticize her because she's a joke candidate. Like, what are you doing, dude? She's getting her airtime and she's getting criticized because she can't complete the job. And anybody who's ever fucking been around the LA Progressive Network knows that that's an impossible. Like, first of all, if you try and overturn an incumbent president, you will more than likely throw the election to the GOP. That's what's going to happen. And vice versa, right? If you have a serious challenger in the primary and you're the incumbent president, you are probably going to lose. And therefore, it will switch to whatever party is challenging you. So why are you doing segments like this? I just don't even understand. Like, literally, she's an impossible candidate, as is Ted F. Kennedy Jr. These are crappy candidates, and it's not going to work out. We can't work with these two people. First of all, they don't represent the interest of the American public. They're both anti-vaxxers. Both of them.
Experienced people who took us into Iraq. Look at all those experienced people who kept us in Afghanistan 20 years too long. Look at all those experienced people who have not raised them.
I agree with you, but also look at Donald Trump. That's the guy, that's the last person we had, and he had no experience.
Right. Donald Trump's problem as president was not that he had not been in politics. It's the nature of his character. If Donald Trump had had a different kind of person who surrounded him, Donald Trump would have been a different kind of president.
Oh my God.
And, the founders did not say that in order to run for president, you had to have had political experience, because they were leaving it to every generation to determine for itself. What are the qualifications for a leader at this time? My qualifications are that I've been around enough to see how this country operates. I've been around the very rich and the very powerful. I've been around the very disadvantaged, do not have money, do not have power. And I've seen how this country operates. I've seen it up close. And I am in this candidacy saying what everybody knows. This society is rigged at this point. This society is not even operating as a real democracy. We have already moved into the area of oligarchy, whether it's oil companies or defense contractors, insurance companies, big pharmaceutical companies. They run this country, Mehdi, and you know it. I've heard you say it.
And I said to you, I agree with you on a lot of the policy stuff. But let's talk about you again. You mentioned character. Politico in March interviewed 12 of your 2020 campaign staffers who painted a picture, quote, of a boss who can be verbally and emotionally abusive. All 12 former staffers said you screamed at people till they cried.
Yeah. I have also heard stories about, this is kind of, I want to take this with a grain of salt. because women tend to be accused of this more so than men, of being bad bosses, right? This is a common smear campaign against women, but I have heard this from various staffer leaks that she's pretty hardcore. And by the way, she's rich as fuck, y'all. She lives on the west side, somewhere in Ted Lieu's district, because she tried to challenge him for Congress at one point. And that's the second richest congressional district in the country, right? Marianne Williamson has always been this sort of activist candidate, is what we call them, where they try and get in the race to just like make the debates interesting. And I think that's probably what she's doing right now. That's fine, whatever. You want to like challenge the incumbent and say, why aren't you doing more? Whatever. That's fine. But the reality is she is a rich bitch. And I don't think for a second that she was on the streets feeding impoverished people in Los Angeles. I don't think she was knocking on doors trying to get measures on the ballot. I don't think, like, when she said she's been around people of all classes, I feel like that's some bullshit. I don't believe that for 1 second. I think she was working with some of the activists in LA who have been grifting for many, many years, and are probably not poor because they are setting up fundraisers and shit in which they set up incomes for themselves. I know she donated like a library to the Unitarian Church where the Bernie's Coffee Shop crowd run their food bank. I just don't believe it. I don't believe it, you know? And it's hard for me to buy her as I've seen everybody. Oh, really? You've seen everybody? Okay. Well, as somebody who has, I just don't buy it. I don't buy it.
3 said you threw phones at your staffers. You've denied all those allegations, I know, called them categorically untrue. And yet last weekend, your deputy campaign manager resigned, and then your campaign manager resigned back to back. Why is it, Marianne, that so many of the people who work for you don't seem to like working for you?
Oh my God, she lost Peter Dow. She just fucking even lost Peter Dow. Fuck's sake. That guy is so hardcore establishment, like flippy floppy, I'll do anything for anybody who's paying me money. I can't even, she fucking lost Peter Dow, you guys. I mean, he just got hired like a few weeks ago. He just got hired a few weeks ago when she didn't have a campaign manager. She hired Peter Dow and now he's gone? For fuck's sake, Marianne.
Well, how come so many do? Number one. Number two, I've never thrown a phone. Okay? Have I raised my voice? Absolutely.
Just to be clear, yes or no, will you support the Democratic presidential candidate in 2024, whoever it is, against the Republican candidate, whoever that is? Yes or no?
You know, Washington, in his farewell address, warned us about political parties because he said people could be more into their supporting their factions than their country. I will support my country. I will do everything I can.
There you go, David. She's literally a GOP plant. She literally is a GOP plant. Here we go.
And to keep a fascist out of the White House. But I agree with Franklin Roosevelt. We will not have to worry about a fascist takeover in this country as long as democracy delivers on its promises. Democracy, it's not living delivering on its promises. I will do whatever I can to help the American people vote for an agenda by which democracy will deliver on its promises. That's the way to keep a fascist out of the White House.
Okay.
I think Marianne Williamson absolutely will endorse Joe Biden. Why wouldn't she? I don't think it would. It wouldn't.
Well, that's very gracious of you, David. I actually live an hour south of LA and know some of these people who are influencing her. And no, I don't think she will. Okay? So that's very gracious of you as a Canadian. Okay?
Benefit her personally to not do that. But also, I do think that she ultimately does care.
No.
Whether or not, again, about her intentions, who knows? But in terms of, getting rid of a fascist or preventing a new one from coming in.
Nope. She's a grifter. She's trying to sell books. She's doing the same bullshit as Trump. She's using Trump's playbook at this point. Because Trump did not think he was going to get elected. You might remember this. He was already talking about like a platform that he was going to come up with after the election in 2016, where he was going to come up. It was like a podcast or something that he was supposed to come up with. And on election night, when he actually got elected, there is a picture of his entire family looking very happy and him looking surprised as fuck, because that was not his intention to actually get elected. You're an absolute fool if you believe that she is running with the actual intention of getting elected.
I do think Marianne Williamson is genuine in that, and she endorsed Biden last time. So, why wouldn't she do that now? But I don't know. I think that was a fairly fair interview. Brought up all sorts of issues, including some workplace problems that it's hard to know how to comment on that stuff without being there and knowing those people and all that. Of course, it doesn't sound good, and all these people quit and talk about.
Yeah, seriously, I've been getting contacts from national organizers telling me her campaign is basically falling apart. Okay, and obviously I'm more on the ground than you are, right? David. Dude, please stop elevating people like this who are they're fraudulent. They're fraudulent people who are trying to take advantage of progressives, and you're helping them.
It being kind of a crazy place to work. But her argument is, hey, more people have worked for me or are working for me than have left, which I guess is also a fair argument. So whatever. I'm more concerned about how she's using her platform and how she would use it if she did gain any kind of power. And I think, regardless of what any intentions there, I do think that ultimately she would do the right thing if she had power. But she doesn't.
Well, you're mistaken. She absolutely wouldn't. She's going to do whatever the fuck she wants to do, and she's not being honest with us about what she actually wants to do because she's using a goddamn playbook.
And it's very, very unlikely that she will, based on how primaries work during a time when you have an incumbent Democratic president. So
God.
It's going to be less of a fun race, this one is, because you're not going to see debates. The DNC is not going to have any open debates around the primary here. which I do think is, I mean, it's clearly anti-democratic, but from their position, yeah, that's like, it's not at all surprising. So I can't pretend that's like news that they're not going to have debates. Have they had debates in the past during incumbent challenges? I don't.
No.
Maybe decades ago, but not recently.
No, because generally if you already got a Democrat in office, you're going to try and get that Democrat reelected. I mean, that's just how, even if it's not like your best choice, it's your best option to fend off the GOP at that point.
So that's not surprising either, but I don't know. It's Marianne Williamson's relevance in this primary depends completely on whether or not the media actually covers her. So this interview is good for her.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter if the media covers her because she's a fucking idiot, dude. Americans are not going to vote for her in the primary, period. I don't know why you guys are going this direction, but it's bizarre as fuck.
Having any kind of interview for Marianne Williamson is a positive for her, because this is all she really has to go on is this kind of attention, because otherwise this entire campaign is completely irrelevant.